What's up, YouTube? It's your friendly neighborhood comic book dude. Here with our first comic review session, or comic showcase session, I guess we can call it, here during the zombie apocalypse, of all things. Not quite, but hopefully you're all doing safe things, not being out in the world. Despite the fact that we have changed our venue for this particular video, we are in fact in a comic book store. I swear, social distancing is being observed. There's nobody here. But yeah, so I felt that the amount of comics that we had would be overlooked if we compressed them into the other video. So I decided, hey, when we get comics, we'll give them their own. And I did give you guys a little teaser at the beginning of, or I can't remember if it was the beginning or the end of the last video, but I had this, which is the original Superman Muhammad Ali from 1978. Beautiful, beautiful piece. So what I'll do is I'll give you guys the grades on them. I for 7 years have worked in a comic book store, and I trained under a grader of, wow, he graded comics for over 30 years professionally, so I feel fairly proficient. I will always defer to somebody who, you know, has more knowledge, has more certification than me, but I have a fair amount, we'll say that much. As you'll see from the variations in the grades. This, however, and a lot of these books are in very nice condition. This is a 9.0. This is what we would call very fine, near mint. The gentleman who had this, my friend, and all these items we've been showcasing, had the foresight to, rather than keep his comics in comic boxes, which isn't bad, but can sometimes, depending on how you keep them, could cause damage to the books or where you keep them. Same with anything. But he kept all his comics and all his magazines in steel file cabinets in a basement with dehumidifiers, long before dehumidifiers were a commonplace thing. And it shows, as you'll see from some of these books. I will say that all but 2 of the books you'll see today are spoken for, or I'm sorry, only 2 of the books you'll see today are spoken for. The rest are up for grabs. I do have prices. I'll give you a roundabouts while we talk about it in the videos. But you're welcome to reach out to me on Facebook, YouTube, any of the links below that you'll see to try to get these from me. And same rules apply to these. You know, YouTube and Facebook, you guys get first grabs on these, and then after a week, if they haven't sold yet, they do go on eBay. So there's Superman Muhammad Ali. Like I said, that's a 9.0. In that grade, it values out at about $132. I will say, much like the collectibles, I do strive to go under the value. You know, get these to people who really want them without saying you need to pay to the letter for these things. So there's that for Superman versus Muhammad Ali. The next, and some of these things that are sort of like grouped together will be going as sets, just for ease for myself and ease for the buyers. The next thing is the original Godzilla, King of the Monsters, first 3 issues from Marvel. These came out in 1977. These were the first Godzilla comics published, period. What do we got on these? Issues 1 and 2 are graded out at a 9.0, which is really nice. And issue 3 had a little bit of wear to it, nothing like crazy, but that one is more of an 8.0, which 8.0 converts over to very fine. This whole set values out to about $70. So not bad for some of the early issues of Godzilla. I mean, you know, I'm sure it could be less depending on what Godzilla comics you were looking to buy, but for the OGs, gotta respect the fact that they are worth way more than when they first came out. Let's see, what else do we got? Okay, so these, and I know you guys are gonna kill me for these because these are the 2 books that are already spoken for. They are also probably the books that are worth the most today, at least combined. For any of you who aren't familiar with him, lovely character who's going to be getting a Disney Plus show soon. Sort of a an underground hit in Marvel. He's never been like a huge character like Wolverine or anything, but he's definitely got a following. That is Moon Knight. Moon Knight. And Moon Knight first appeared in this lovely ongoing book called Werewolf by Night, which followed like a horror character that Marvel was exploring at the time. And I mean, you know, he still exists. I mean, granted, damn near every Marvel character still exists. You know, nobody ever really dies in the comics. But the first appearance of Moon Knight, which happened in this Werewolf by Night issue, is the most expensive issue of the entire run, which sort of makes Werewolf by Night seem like a hobo in comparison, because it's just like, hey man, this is your entire series here, but there's one book that doesn't feature you, blows out the rest. And then the next issue in the series, Werewolf by Night 33, this is 32, his Moon Knight's second appearance. So Werewolf by Night number 1 graded out at a 9.0. This is very nice. I have only seen 1 or 2 of these books in my hands over the years, and they were never near as nice as this. 9.0 Werewolf by Night 32 First Moon Knight is $975 in the guidebook. Now, generally speaking, I use the Overstreet price guide, which releases a guide every year that's a composite value based on auctions, online sales, various things. They kind of combine them all together and come up with an average, and then put it in the book for use by people like us or collectors to value out books. Conversely, though, we're in the it's 2020. A lot of people do use online values as opposed to Overstreet. I have peeked at some of the online values of this, and they're even higher just for the speculators. So all I can say is if these were up for sale, they have already been sold. But if you guys were being able to purchase them above and beyond the fact that they're cheaper than like eBay and Facebook and wherever else you're gonna find these, like Key Collector or whatever, you still would have gotten a great deal above and beyond that, because I was going by Overstreet and not those online inflated prices. Because truthfully, those things, they fluctuate. They're not indicative of actual value. They're indicative of people who are speculating and are like, oh my god, this is going to be hot, and times 100 or 1,000 people, so they're all buying the book up, and then the price goes up, but not necessarily the value. So keep that in mind when you do online buying for comics, especially for high-end stuff like this. Don't let people rip you off because they're like, oh, well, it went for exactly this much on eBay. And anybody could set a price on eBay. Keep that in mind. But yeah, so between those two, though, the Moon Knight, the first issue of that, the first appearance was $975. The second issue graded out at about a 7.5. It had a little bit more wear to it, and even at a 7.5, it was a $108 book. So the combined total of those two was just south of $1,100. Pretty good. Like I said, probably the most valuable thing you're going to see today. I will say this next thing, though, is also a very hot book, and this is up for grabs. So in the same vein, around the same time, this was, I believe, slightly older than Werewolf by Night. Marvel was experimenting with a lot of like horror characters in the 70s. They had like Man-Thing, they had Werewolf by Night, they had lots of things. Frankenstein popped up here and there. One of the big ones, though, was Dracula, and it does not get bigger than this issue of Dracula. Much like Werewolf by Night's hottest appearance or hottest book was a Moon Knight appearance, Tomb of Dracula's most expensive issue is a first appearance of Blade, the Vampire Slayer. For anybody who needs their memory jogged, think back to Wesley Snipes there in the early 90s. First live action in theater Marvel movie, because I know people will correct me and be like, there were Marvel movies that were like on TV in the 90s. I'm talking like Blockbuster did very well, made people start thinking about, hey, we should adapt some more of these comic book characters. But yeah, so Tomb of Dracula number 10 is Blade's first appearance ever. This graded out to be an 8.5, so somewhere between VF and near mint. And the value of 8.5 Tomb of Dracula is $264. Wow. I will still have it probably less than that, but haven't decided 100% on a price yet. When I do post after this video, you'll see the listings for the prices. So we'll go from there. Oh man! All right. So the next batch of books, and I probably have more of these from this particular person, but I haven't gotten them all yet. You know, again, like with the collectibles, we do this stuff in batches. We've got, for you Star Wars fans, got the first 4 issues of Star Wars from Marvel. First prints, they did do reprints. One of the telltale signs that you've got a Star Wars reprint is where the UPC would be. It's blank. Or sometimes in the upper left corner where the number and the price of the book is, they would tell you that it's a second print. Other place to see that, I'm not opening a lot of these right now. I'm sure some of you guys wish I would, but just with the whole virus thing going on, like I have been disinfecting all this stuff, and I'm trying to avoid touching as much as possible since I've already graded them. If anybody really like gets interested later, you guys are welcome to message me and be like, hey, can I see more pictures of this? And I'll, you know, wash my hands a bunch and get on some gloves and I can like take pictures for you. But another place to look in a book, if you've ever tried to figure out, hey, is this a first or a second print? When you open up the book, there's a spot usually on the first page. Some of the newer books, like starting in like the 90s, they started to do them in the back for some books. There's like a little paragraph, and you start to see things like where the book was published and like who made it and like if it was a reprint or anything like that. Usually right there, if it says if it's a second or third or whatever print, they list it right there, and that's called the indicia. So that little paragraph you see on the first page or last page, that's where you would look to find that out also. But yeah, first 4 issues of Star Wars. What we got here? So these varied a little bit. Issues 1 and 2 were both very fine, so that's 8 O's. That put 1 at $67 and 2 at $30. Number 3, which had a little bit more wear to it, had a weird Chewbacca cover, because that does not look like Chewbacca, but apparently that's Chewbacca. That was a 6.5, so that was a little bit better than a fine. 6.0 is a fine, so a little bit better than that. That would make that book about $23. And then the last one, got a little Darth Vader cover going on. This one was the best of these 4 books. This was an 8.5 again, so very fine to near mint. That one was about $40. So the whole pile right here is running, we got $160 for these 4 books. So that means it's about an average of $40 a book. Still though, original Marvel Star Wars, nothing before this in terms of Star Wars comics. So, and they have done a lot of Star Wars comics over the years. They're still putting them out. So if you're a longtime collector of Star Wars, this is probably something you want to get your hands on if you don't already have it. Let's see. Next thing, and this actually is another thing for you lovely speculators out there. There's a new, another new show coming out, I believe on Hulu. It was going to be, they were going to do like a connected universe of like, almost like evil characters, I want to call them. Like they didn't have a name for it, but it was going to be like Ghost Rider and a couple of other things. And I heard Ghost Rider got canned for whatever reason, but the other show that features this character is it's called Hellstrom, and it's not out yet. It's pre-production is all the stuff I've seen, but it was announced, and it's going to be a Hulu show. But the character itself, Damon Hellstrom, it's going to be him and his sister, who she has her own comic. This is his first series. Excuse me. It's not his first appearance. I can't recall his first appearance off the top of my head. I believe it is a Marvel Spotlight, but I don't remember the issue number off the top of my head. I will get back to you on that. But character himself, Damon Hellstrom's first book, like his first series that he was featured, is Son of Satan. And we've got issues 1 through 8 of that. Most of these, let's see here, 1 through 8, they all ranged from 8.0, between 8.0 and 9.2, which is the best grade that I'll give a book, the highest grade you can get, because it's on a 1 to 10 scale, as well as like they break down those numbers by things like, hey, 6.0 is fine. You know, they equate the number to a verbal grade. The best grade you can get is a 10, which is Gem Mint. I've never personally seen a Gem Mint book. I would be remiss to think, you know, very many exist, because you can almost always find some sort of flaw with a comic. You can get damn near close, but I've never seen a Gem Mint book. So the highest I feel comfortable ever grading anything is 9.2, which is considered near mint. You know, I can't actually see anything wrong with the book, but I leave that wiggle room between near mint and gem on the off chance that someone else notices something that I didn't. So, but most of these were relatively inexpensive either way. You know, issue 1 was a very fine, an 8.0 was $25. You know, that was actually, even though it's not the best grade in this run, it's still the most expensive issue. Like I've got, what else we got? Issue 5 was a near mint, but it's only $20 because it's, you know, it's not number 1. That's basically it. Sometimes number 1 just makes it more. But yeah, I think this whole collection we've got here, 37. It's going to be somewhere about 150 for all 8 issues. Maybe a little less than that. My math might be off on the 60. 72, 84, 100, 141. So 141 is what it clocks out at for all 8 of these issues. Again, nothing less than very fine here. 8.0. I got 8.0s, 9.0s, 8.5s, and 9.2s across these grades for the Son of Satans. So if you're a fan of this, or if you're somebody who's like, ooh, maybe these will go up when Hellstrom comes out, maybe you should pick these up now then. So, got those. Let's see, what's next? If you haven't noticed by now, there's a decent horror theme here, just like the collectibles. Gentleman who owned all these had a proclivity for that, and it shows through his comics. So the next run of books is, and with some of these, there's a lot. So at a certain point, I might only like cherry pick some of the issues, just so I'm not like hogging up all the time with like every single issue. But might have just seen that there. This next wave of books is The Demon. He was made by Jack Kirby. He was a character who his origin is such that he was a knight of the Round Table who was cursed to be bound to a demon, and he has like a set of words that he can say to become the demon or revert back to his alter ego of Jason Blood. I mean, I remember seeing this as a kid. You know, I mean, I grew up in the 90s, but they featured him a couple of times. If you were a 90s kid, you know, he was on Batman the Animated Series. They had him in the Justice League cartoon. So I saw him a couple times. Very cool stuff. I mean, if you're a fan of Jack Kirby or horror, I mean, can't go wrong with The Demon. Those again are in the same kind of boat. I'm looking at these now. Those are they range between very fine 8.0s all the way up to 9.2 near mints, depending on the issues. This run's probably going to cost a couple hundred. I mean, number 1 alone I've got at a very fine. It's 8.5. I've got issues 1 through 15 here. So, but number 1 at 8.5 is $98. So, and you know, there's some other standouts here. Issue 3 is actually, I've got that graded at near mint, and that one at near mint's a $60 book. That one's probably worth checking back with me on, like once I post this stuff, to see what we actually price that out at. But yeah, I will, when I do post, I'll put what issues are in there. I will put in parentheses as well each issue's grade, so you can tell like, hey, which is which one, you know, am I more interested in, so I can ask for more information on, more pictures of, whatever the case may be. But yeah, we'll do that. So that's The Demon. Oh, next is a great one. I personally own these myself. These are not mine. I actually have contemplated maybe upgrading because these copies are better than mine. But did not go that route, so you guys are privy to them. Okay. So this actually already had a show. It's had several things, to be honest, and he's been featured in lots of stuff. And for God's sakes, I wish the show had lasted. It only went one season, and it was canceled maybe the second or third episode in, mired with controversy, and just, I don't know. It was, the showrunner for it was James Wan, who's done tons of horror things. He's done, he did Aquaman. He's got a long list of great things he's done. I can't, for the life of me, imagine why this property couldn't stand on its own longer. But it is Swamp Thing. Bernie Wrightson Swamp Thing. Now, much like our friend there, the Demon, who we just had, or some of the others, like Son of Satan, this is Swamp Thing's first series, his own book. It is not his first appearance, though. Believe his first appearance is in either a House of Mystery or a House of Secrets. But yeah. So this we've got the first chunk of. I will honestly tell you, I think there are more of these, and if these don't sell with the 22 that we have here, because we've got, I'm sorry, not 22, we've got 1 through 24. We've got 1 through 24 and 2 specials, like one-shots basically. And we come across more, I might combine them, because there is a first appearance in one of the later issues of Swamp Thing of a character a lot of people like. I will save that conversation until such a time that I find that book, so I don't get people's hopes up. But yeah, so we've got 1 through 24 here. The grades on these varied a little bit more than the last couple. The lowest book I found in these 26 issues was a fine. It was a 6.0, or as high as near mint. I'll say number one I had graded out at a very fine, an 8.0. And that comes out to $115. So, I mean, that's just one issue. The average price on most of these issues was like high 20s, low 30s. Just depended on the issue, though. Yeah, like for example, I got issue number 9 for some reason. I mean, I looked it up. I didn't see any particular note. It might just be because it's got a cool cover, and maybe because it's in better shape than some of the other ones. It was issue 9. This one I've got at 9.0, and I mean, we've got other issues around it that are similar grade that aren't as high, but this one's a $53 book in 9.0. Again, it looks beautiful. It could just be that beautiful Bernie Wrightson art. Or not, yeah. But, so yeah, there's that. Again, I'm not going to even hazard a guess on the price on this whole run yet, just because, I mean, issue 1's $115, and every couple of issues will knock you up another 100, and I need a fuller picture myself to sit and kind of price them all out to decide what kind of break I can give people. So yeah, there's that. All right, and then the last bit that we have for this first video, or first video in this series anyway, is going to be Teen Titans. For the longest time, I actually didn't think this was this run that I found here existed. I thought that the '80s stuff was the first iteration of the Teen Titans, and it's just because like I've never come across these. Like I've maybe once or twice seen them, but I mean before I'd seen them, I didn't think that the Teen Titans that were that old. I thought it was a newer concept. But yeah, it was actually like a 12-cent series back in the day. So don't have issue 1 of this. This is the chunk of Teen Titans that I managed to find was issues 19 to 53, and because it's a 12-center, it's old. He might not have gotten older than issue 19. It's really hard to say, but a lot of these are pricey. Just all dependent on the grade, and I think with one rare exception in this whole run, this was another one of those 6.0 to about near mint, like fine to near mint was the range of this run. There was one issue which very unfortunately was in very poor shape. Cheapest book I'll have listed all day. That is issue 36 here. So on its face, you know, you might not be able to tell, but in the bottom corner here, this whole piece is torn, and it's got a piece of tape behind it from, you know, whenever this was last looked at, and it's holding it there as if one didn't physically inspect the book, you'd never see it. Tears, man. Tears kill the value of a book. I think I may have slightly undervalued it, and I think it was just because I, you know, didn't want to split hairs with people on this thing, man. Like, tears hurt. But the rest of the book is beautiful. You know what I mean? The pages are all intact. I probably should have graded that at like a VG, like a 4.0. I put it at a good. Good is 2.0. It's the worst a complete book can be, because the levels beneath that are for like full-blown things missing from the book, you know, incomplete, things like that. But yeah, I only graded this a 2.0, so it's $4. Cheapest book I got all day. Conversely, what else do we got? Issue 21 of this run, which has got a Hawk and Dove appearance. And if you watch the Titans show, Hawk and Dove are a man and a woman. That was not always the case. The original Hawk and Dove were both men. So, there's that. But yeah, this issue, the reason I was showing you this one's an 8.5. It's very fine to near mint, and it is $82. I don't know if it's just because it's a Hawk and Dove appearance or just because it's in great shape for a 12-cent book. Either way, a lot of these are, well, actually, the average on these is also somewhere between like 20 and 30. There's a couple of the books that are in better shape kind of spike. Like, here's another one. Issue, what else we got here? Issue 28. It's a Aqualad knocking the tar out of Robin. That one we had at a 9.0, so it's very fine near mint, and it's worth $50. So, but yeah. So yeah, for the Teen Titans though, I got issues 19 to 53. Nice smattering of issues there. Other than that, that's it for today. As always, like, comment, subscribe to these things. Keep yourself informed, so if you're interested in buying any of this stuff, you'll know where you can get it. Also, during our lovely coronavirus pandemic, as I said at the beginning of the video, make sure you're staying safe, make sure you're all stocked up on the things you need. Despite the fact that this is an endeavor to sell items, don't feel, you know, keep your priorities in order. You know, make sure you have what you need before you use other income to purchase the wants like these things, right? As always, I've been your friendly neighborhood comic book dude. I'll catch you guys later.